A millionaire CEO rejects all the rich women, but falls in love with a poor food delivery girl. Richard Stone was bored even though he was at the most exclusive party in town, surrounded by wealthy admirers and glamorous women. He tried to hide his impatience as he listened to empty conversations about luxury trips and rare jewelry. He was about to come up with an excuse to leave when something unexpected happened. From across the room, an outraged scream cut through the air. All eyes turned toward the entrance. A distinguished man in a pristine white suit, one of the most powerful bankers in the city, was now completely drenched in red juice. And right in front of him stood a simple young woman holding a delivery bag from Oriental Flavor Restaurant. Her eyes were wide open, as if she had just accidentally set off an explosion. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there," she stammered, panicked, trying to wipe his shirt with a napkin. The whole room burst into laughter. "Who let someone like that in here? She's probably never even seen a suit up close," whispered a socialite, and the crowd's laughter grew louder. Lila, feeling her face flush with embarrassment, protested. "I was just delivering an order. They sent me to the wrong address." The banker, still frustrated and attempting to salvage his shirt, barked, "Get this girl out of here! Now!" Before Lila could react, a security guard appeared, grabbing her arm with a firm grip. "You don't belong here," he said coldly. Panic surged through Lila as she tried to wriggle free. "Wait, I'm just making a delivery. I'm not trespassing." Just then, Richard stepped in. "Let her go," he commanded, and the guard hesitated, taken aback by Richard's authoritative tone. The guests exchanged shocked glances. "Richard, don't tell me you're defending this girl," the banker scoffed. But Richard ignored the man's outrage and approached Lila, crossing his arms. "What's your name, and why are you here?" he asked, his voice steady. Lila swallowed hard, still incredulous that the richest man in the city was speaking to her. "I'm Lila," she replied hesitantly. "I work at Oriental Flavor Restaurant and do deliveries, but the app sent me to the wrong place." Richard narrowed his eyes, contemplating. "Wait, is that the restaurant that delivers yakisoba?" Lila blinked in confusion. "Yes, how do you know?" That was when Richard smiled for the first time that night. "So you're the one who makes that amazing yakisoba?" Lila scratched the back of her head sheepishly. "Well, it's my grandmother's secret recipe. I just helped prepare it." Richard rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "That's perfect. I need a cook." Lila froze, her heart racing at the unexpected proposition. The guests gasped collectively, and the banker's eyes widened in disbelief. "Richard, you can't be serious," he exclaimed. "I don't care," Richard replied nonchalantly. "I'll pay you 3 times what you make as a delivery driver." Lila almost choked on her breath. 3 times more? She echoed, still in shock. It was an astronomical sum, but she hesitated, torn by the thought of leaving her grandmother alone at the restaurant. She quickly reasoned that if she were going to do this, it had to be worth it. Crossing her arms defiantly, she blurted out, 5 times more. The guests widened their eyes, and the banker nearly had a heart attack. Richard raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You're pretty demanding." "I have bills to pay," she retorted, her tone assertive, yet playful. Richard smiled, clearly amused. 4 times. 4.5. He proposed, narrowing his eyes, clearly enjoying the banter. "Do you always negotiate like this?" "Only when I'm in trouble," she shot back, her confidence rising. The entire room was in shock, and the banker huffed in frustration. "Richard, are you really hiring this girl?" But Richard simply kept his gaze on Lila, a smirk playing on his lips. "Deal," he declared. Lila's eyes widened as she processed what had just happened. "What?" "You start tomorrow," Richard added, a glint of mischief in his eyes. Lila looked from Richard to her stained apron, then back at the wealthy guests around her. What just happened? She wondered. She had only come to make a delivery, and now she had a new job, working for a completely unpredictable billionaire CEO. What could possibly go wrong? The next morning, Lila woke up still reeling from the events of the previous night. She blinked in disbelief, trying to gather her thoughts. Did I really agree to work for a billionaire CEO? Her grandmother's voice called from the other side of the door. "Lila, dear, breakfast is ready." Taking a deep breath, Lila got up and stepped out of her room, entering the small kitchen of the Oriental Flavor restaurant. Her grandmother was already busy frying spring rolls for the day's first deliveries. "How was that big party?" the older woman asked, not even turning around. Lila grabbed a cup of coffee and sat down at the table. "Oh, it was great. I caused a little disaster, spilled juice all over a banker, almost got kicked out. Well, now I work for Richard Stone." Her grandmother froze mid-motion, holding a spatula in the air. "What?" "I know it sounds crazy," Lila continued, "but he offered me 5 times what I make here, and I accepted, but only part-time." Her grandmother resumed, stirring the spring rolls, deep in thought. "Do you trust this man?" Lila shrugged, trying to reassure herself. "He eats our yakisoba every week. If he were dangerous, he would have tried to kidnap me by now," she joked lightly. The older woman chuckled, shaking her head. "Well then, go ahead. But if he gives you any trouble, let me know, and I'll handle it." Lila quickly finished her coffee and stood up. "Wish me luck that I don't break anything on my first day." The Stone Enterprises building was even more intimidating up close. As she stepped inside, the blast of cold air from the AC hit her, and she saw dozens of employees in suits and high heels rushing around, talking on phones or typing on expensive tablets. Adjusting her apron, she felt completely out of place. A well-dressed receptionist looked at her with a neutral expression. "Can I help you?" "I'm Lila, Richard's new cook," she declared, trying to sound confident. The receptionist blinked slowly, as if trying to determine whether this was some sort of joke. After a brief, uncomfortable silence, she picked up the phone and dialed quickly. "Mr. Stone, your new cook is here." Lila could hear a muffled response on the other end before the receptionist pointed toward the elevator. "Top floor," she instructed. Taking a deep breath, Lila stepped inside the elevator, her stomach twisting with nerves. When the doors opened, she found herself in a kitchen that was more than just a kitchen. It was a masterpiece. Marble countertops, glass shelves, and a huge island in the center made it shine. And there was Richard, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed, waiting for her. "Took you long enough," he teased, a playful smile on his face. "I got lost 3 times on the way." "But I made it," she replied, trying to match his lightheartedness. He gestured toward the ingredients on the counter. "Good. Let's see if you actually know how to cook." "You didn't test that before hiring me?" she questioned, a smirk creeping onto her face. "No, that sounds like a bad business decision," he replied with a straight face. "It might be, but if it's terrible, I'll just fire you and move on," she shot back, raising an eyebrow. Richard laughed. "You can take it that way." "All right, let's see who loses here," Lila said, rolling up her sleeves. She grabbed the ingredients and started cooking the simple yakisoba just as her grandmother had taught her. She could feel Richard watching her intently, which made her a little nervous. "You're stirring too much," she muttered as she stirred the vegetables. "I'm studying the process. I can't tell if I'm a cook or an animal at the zoo," he replied, half joking. "Just making sure my food will be edible." Lila rolled her eyes and focused, but soon a problem arose. She had been so caught up in their banter that she accidentally added way too much soy sauce. The salty smell filled the air, and panic washed over her. "Oh no! What?" Richard grabbed a plate, served himself a portion, and picked up a pair of chopsticks. He took a bite, chewed slowly, and then frowned. Lila held her breath, waiting for his reaction. Richard looked at her, pausing dramatically. "Have you ever been to the ocean?" "Yes. Why?" "Because this has about the same amount of salt," he remarked, setting the chopsticks down. Lila groaned in frustration. "Great. First day, and I've already ruined everything." "It's a rookie mistake," he said, trying to ease her disappointment. "But honestly, it's still better than a lot of things I've eaten." Lila crossed her arms, a small smile breaking through her frustration. "So that means I passed the test?" He laughed. "Yes, but with one condition. Don't poison me." "Well, no promises," she replied with a smirk. As Lila was cleaning the counter a short while later, someone walked into the kitchen without knocking. A man in a suit with a stern expression said, "Mr. Stone, can we talk?" "Richard, finish up here and meet me in my office," he directed. Lila nodded, watching the two leave. Alone in the kitchen, she couldn't help but wonder what had just transpired. In less than 24 hours, she had gone from a normal life to working at Stone Enterprises, cooking for a wealthy and arrogant businessman, and negotiating her salary like a seasoned professional. And she had a feeling this was just the beginning. Lila finished cleaning and looked around the pristine kitchen, feeling a small sense of pride. If someone had told her that within a day she would be cooking in a billionaire's office, she would have laughed. But now, here she was. She dried her hands on her apron and walked down the long hallway toward Richard's office. When she arrived, she paused in front of the slightly open door. Inside, Richard leaned against his desk, arms crossed, while the man in the suit spoke in a serious tone. "This is not the right time for distractions, Richard. You need to stay focused on the merger with Sterling Group. You can't afford to waste time hiring street cooks." Lila narrowed her eyes. Street cook? She pushed the door open and stepped inside without hesitation. "If I'm a street cook, then you're just an office executive. It's the same thing." The man turned to her, surprised by her boldness. "And you were your boss's personal chef?" Richard hid a smile, turning toward her. "Lila, this is Paul, my financial advisor." Lila sized him up and down. "Paul, huh? Nice to meet you. Now you can stop calling me a street cook." Paul scoffed and turned back to Richard. "Are you really taking this seriously?" Richard shrugged. "Her food is better than any five-star restaurant around here." Lila lifted her chin defiantly. "Fine then. Why don't you introduce this chef to your business partners? Let's see if she's really as good as you claim." Lila blinked in surprise. "Wait, what?" Richard looked at her, considering the idea. "You know, that's not a bad suggestion." "Wait, what?" Lila echoed, her eyes widening. Paul smiled, satisfied with the development. "Tomorrow night, Richard has a business dinner. Why don't you cook for the investors? If you're as good as he says, everyone will be impressed. If not, I still get paid either way." Lila interrupted without missing a beat. "And do I get to choose the menu?" Paul hesitated. "Well, usually these dinners have more sophisticated dishes. But I was hired because my food is good, not because I follow rules," she insisted, crossing her arms. Richard looked at Paul with a playful glint in his eye. "I like that. Paul's side. Just don't make anyone sick." "No promises," Lila replied with a smile. The next morning, Lila arrived early at the Stone Enterprises building, carrying a basket full of ingredients. Richard found her in the kitchen and glanced at the bags. "How many people are you planning to feed?" "6 investors in you, so technically 7. But it's always good to have extra food," she replied confidently. Richard grabbed an apple from the basket and took a bite. "So, what's on the menu?" Lila leaned on the counter, a smile on her face. "I thought of something simple but memorable. We'll start with shrimp fritters, then special fried rice, sweet and sour beef, and yakisoba." Richard raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You're serving yakisoba to millionaires?" Lila lifted her chin defiantly. "They're going to love it." Richard chuckled, taking another bite of the apple. "You're stubborn." "And I'm good at what I do," she shot back. As night fell, bringing the business dinner with it, Lila was in the kitchen, focused on preparing the dishes. When the first guests began to arrive, she peeked through the glass and spotted elegantly dressed men and women speaking in hushed tones. Paul was among them, and when he glanced toward the kitchen, he gave a smug little smile. Lila rolled her eyes, nerves kicking in. Richard appeared beside her, feigning nonchalance. "Nervous?" "Me? Never," she replied, though her heart raced. The dinner began, and the dishes started making their way out. First, the golden crispy shrimp fritters, then the fried rice with fresh vegetables and herbs. The sweet and sour beef arrived, fragrant and glistening. And finally, the steaming yakisoba with handmade noodles and perfectly sautéed vegetables. At first, the guests tasted the food with neutral expressions, and Lila watched discreetly, her heart pounding. Then, the magic happened. The first smiles appeared, glances were exchanged, and one guest cleared his throat, looking at Richard. "This is surprising." Another investor nodded. "I've never had yakisoba this good." Paul appeared to swallow a lemon as he watched, while Richard glanced at Lila from across the room, a proud smile on his face. "I told you," he mouthed. Lila blinked, astonished. She hadn't just impressed those people, she had won them over. And for the first time, she realized that this new job might be more interesting than she had ever imagined. After the successful business dinner, Lila thought her life would return to normal. But ever since Richard had suggested opening a restaurant together, her mind had been racing with possibilities. A business partner with a billionaire. It sounded like a dream, yet it felt so surreal. When she arrived at the office that morning, she quickly realized Richard was serious about the venture. Right in the middle of the massive conference table sat a stack of documents. "Good morning, cooking teacher," Richard greeted her with a sly smile. Lila eyed the papers suspiciously. "What's this?" "I've already begun looking at potential locations for the restaurant," Richard replied, pulling out a chair and gesturing for her to sit. Lila blinked in disbelief. "You actually want to open a restaurant with me?" "Not only do I want to, but I'm serious about making it happen," he affirmed, tapping the papers lightly. She let out a nervous laugh. "Richard, this is crazy. I'm just a cook who learned to make good food from my grandmother." He shrugged, casually. "And I'm just a billionaire who nearly burnt down the kitchen trying to fry a steak. Sounds like a good balance, right?" Lila shook her head, trying to process the idea. "Where do you plan to open this restaurant?" Richard opened one of the documents and pointed to 3 locations. "I have 3 options, one downtown, another in an upscale neighborhood, and a third near your village." Lila froze, her heart racing. "Near my village?" "Yes," he replied earnestly. "I thought it would be a great way to support your community. Honestly, homemade food has a strong appeal." She looked at him suspiciously. "Is this your idea or Paul's?" Richard laughed. "Mine. Paul thinks it's a mistake to invest outside the commercial center, but I disagree." Lila bit her lip, torn between excitement and hesitation. It would be an incredible opportunity, but also a huge risk. Richard noticed her struggle and leaned forward, his voice sincere. "What's holding you back?" "My grandmother," Lila admitted. "I don't want to leave her alone in the restaurant." Richard tilted his head, considering her words. "Then bring her to the new restaurant." Lila's eyes widened. "You make it sound so simple." "It can be," he insisted. "She's a great cook, and so are you. It would be a family business." Her grandmother's unwavering support echoed in her mind. Maybe this is the moment to start building my own story, Lila thought, feeling a wave of determination wash over her. Finally, Lila took a deep breath. "Fine, but I want half the decision-making power over the restaurant deal, and no outrageous prices. I want it to be affordable for everyone." Richard raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You really know how to negotiate." Lila smiled back, recalling how she learned from him. After leaving the office, Lila rushed home to share the news with her grandmother. When she arrived at the small kitchen of Oriental flavor, her grandmother was calmly folding aprons. "Grandma, you won't believe this," Lila exclaimed, pulling up a chair. Her grandmother looked up, a smile spreading across her face. "What is it, Lila?" "Richard wants to open a restaurant with me," Lila said, her excitement bubbling over. "And he wants to open it near the village." Her grandmother blinked in surprise. "The billionaire you work for?" Lila nodded eagerly. "Yes, and he thinks homemade food will have strong appeal." Her grandmother resumed folding the aprons, her expression thoughtful. "And do you want this?" Lila hesitated for a moment. "I think so, but only if you come with me." The older woman chuckled softly. "My dear, I'm too old to start a new restaurant, but I need you. This restaurant only exists because of you." Her grandmother took Lila's hands in hers, warmth radiating from the gesture. "I'll always be here for you, Lila, but it's time for you to build your own story." Feeling a tightness in her chest, Lila realized her grandmother was right. It was time to take a leap of faith. In the following days, Richard and Lila dove into the restaurant project, their discussions turning intense. "I want affordable dishes," Lila insisted, determined to maintain quality. Richard countered, "We need someone with experience." "Experience doesn't come from a diploma," Lila shot back, her hands on her hips. "My grandmother's been cooking for 50 years. Richard sighed, realizing they were at an impasse. "Okay, let me build my own team." "You doubt my team's abilities?" Lila challenged, raising an eyebrow. Richard smiled, impressed by her confidence. I'm just concerned about quality. Lila crossed her arms, unwavering. I'll prove I'm right. As the days passed, the restaurant began to take shape. Lila felt a thrill of excitement as she envisioned her dream becoming a reality. But there was one detail neither had expected. The night before signing the restaurant contract, Lila received an unexpected visit from Miranda. Walking into the Oriental Flavor, Miranda wore a sly smile. We need to talk, she said, her eyes scanning the kitchen. Lila crossed her arms defensively. I don't have anything to say to you. Miranda stepped closer, lowering her voice. I just want to warn you to be careful. Lila raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet suspicious. Careful with what? Miranda, fixing her hair with a dramatic flair, responded, You might think Richard is being generous, but men like him don't do anything without a hidden agenda. Lila's blood boiled at the insinuation. Funny, because it seems like he got tired of you first. Miranda's expression darkened. We'll see how long you last, sweetheart. As Miranda left, Lila felt a tightness in her chest, battling doubt. Was there any truth to Miranda's words? What if all of this was just a passing fancy for Richard? The next day, Lila walked into Richard's office, determined to voice her concerns. But before she could speak, Richard was already signing the restaurant papers. Done. We are officially partners now. Lila swallowed hard, her heart racing. There was no turning back now. This could either work out perfectly or go terribly wrong. As the days unfolded, Lila found herself fully immersed in the whirlwind of opening the restaurant. Excitement buzzed in the air, but so did the tension. With every conversation Lila had with Richard, she could feel the stakes rising higher. They were partners now, and the pressure was on. One afternoon, Richard approached her with a serious expression. We need to discuss the menu, he said, his tone indicating the importance of the subject. Lila nodded, eager to share her ideas. I want to focus on comfort food, dishes that remind people of home and community, she replied, her passion shining through. Richard crossed his arms, considering her words. That's great, but we also need to appeal to a broader audience. What about adding some gourmet options to the mix? Lila frowned, feeling the challenge of balancing tradition with modern expectations. I understand, but I don't want to lose the essence of what we're trying to create. Our food should tell a story, not just be a trend. Richard raised an eyebrow, impressed with her conviction. You're right. Let's find a way to incorporate both. As they brainstormed together, Lila felt more confident in their partnership. But just as things seemed to be settling, another obstacle emerged. News broke that Miranda was planning a charity dinner featuring some of the city's top chefs. Lila knew that this was no coincidence. Miranda was trying to undermine their efforts. We can't let her get away with this, Lila said, determination coursing through her veins as she paced Richard's office. We need to show that our food can compete with the best. Richard nodded, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. Let's crash the dinner. We'll make a statement that we're here to stay. Lila felt a rush of adrenaline at the idea. Yes, we'll create a dish that showcases our style, something unforgettable. They spent the next few days preparing for the event, their team working tirelessly to perfect their creation. As the night of the charity dinner arrived, Lila felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. They arrived at the venue, a lavish hall filled with elegantly dressed guests and the city's elite. Lila inhaled deeply, taking in the atmosphere. This was her chance to shine. As the guests mingled, Richard kept an eye on the proceedings, his presence reassuring her. When it was finally time for their dish to be served, Lila's heart raced. As the judges tasted their creation, the room fell silent. Lila held her breath, anxiously awaiting their reactions. After a moment that felt like an eternity, one of the judges broke the silence. This is remarkably good. I'm impressed. A wave of relief washed over Lila. Their hard work was paying off. As the night continued, more guests praised their dish, and Lila felt a surge of pride. She had proven that their food was as good as any gourmet offering. But the night wasn't without its complications. Lila noticed a waiter acting suspiciously. He seemed to be hovering around their station, glancing nervously at the dishes. Suddenly, he reached for a bottle and attempted to pour something into their sauce. Lila rushed over, her instincts kicking in. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her heart pounding. The waiter's eyes widened in panic, and he dropped the bottle before bolting away. "Come back here," Lila shouted, but he was already gone. She turned to Richard, urgency in her voice. "Someone tried to sabotage our food." Richard's expression darkened. "We need to figure out who's behind this." After the dinner, Lila felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had fought hard for their place in the culinary scene, and now someone was trying to tear it down, but she wouldn't let it happen. The next morning, Lila arrived at the restaurant early, still reeling from the events of the night before. As she entered the kitchen, she noticed a white envelope on the counter, her name written on it. Her heart raced as she opened it. The note read, "Don't run away. We need to talk. I'll be waiting for you at the Grand Imperial Hotel at 7 p.m. Richard." Her stomach fluttered with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. What did he want to discuss? As the day progressed, she found it hard to concentrate, her thoughts consumed by the upcoming meeting. When the clock struck 7, Lila arrived at the Grand Imperial Hotel, taking a moment to gather her thoughts before stepping into the lavish lobby. As she spotted Richard at a reserved table, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, her heart skipped a beat. "You came," he said, a hint of relief in his voice. "I still haven't decided if it was a mistake," Lila replied, trying to mask her nerves with humor as she sat down. Richard's expression shifted to serious. "I wanted to talk about our next steps. We can't let Miranda or anyone else undermine what we're building." Lila nodded, feeling the determination swell within her. "I agree. We need to show everyone that we're not backing down." With renewed focus, they discussed strategies to counter Miranda's influence. They brainstormed ideas for a grand opening that would not only showcase their culinary talents, but also solidify their place in the community. As the evening progressed, Lila realized that despite the challenges, she felt a sense of purpose and partnership with Richard that she had never experienced before. Together, they were unstoppable. In the days that followed, they worked tirelessly, pouring their hearts into every detail of the restaurant. The vision was becoming a reality, and Lila felt a thrill of excitement every time she stepped into the kitchen. Finally, as they put the finishing touches on everything, Richard turned to her, a smile breaking across his face. "We did this together, Lila. I can't wait to see how the community responds." Lila beamed back at him, feeling a profound sense of pride and connection. This was more than just a restaurant. It was a testament to her journey, her struggles, and her dreams coming to life. As she prepared for the grand opening, Lila felt ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing she wouldn't face it alone. The grand opening day arrived faster than Lila had anticipated, and excitement buzzed through the restaurant as the team hustled to prepare. The whole town seemed to know about the new restaurant, with lines stretching down the sidewalk and journalists ready to cover the event. Lila felt a mixture of exhilaration and anxiety as she moved around the bustling kitchen. "We're going to be okay," one of her team members shouted, trying to boost morale as they rushed to finalize preparations. "Just keep everything organized," Lila replied, her heart racing as she checked the dishes one last time. "The sauce isn't right. Who burned the rice? Did anyone remember to add the spices to the yakisoba?" Richard walked into the kitchen, crossing his arms with a knowing smile. "What's going on in here? You look like you're about to set the place on fire." Lila shot him a playful glare. "Just trying to make sure we don't embarrass ourselves on opening night. We've worked too hard for this." He chuckled, his eyes gleaming with pride. "You've got this. Remember, it's about sharing our love for food with the community. Just breathe." Taking a deep breath, Lila nodded, finding some comfort in his words. Once the first orders were ready, they began to flow out of the kitchen, each dish a reflection of their hard work and dedication. The customers' faces lit up with delight as they tasted the food, and Lila felt a rush of happiness. As the evening progressed, Lila noticed something unusual. The restaurant was packed, but she could feel the presence of someone watching them closely. When she glanced out into the dining area, she spotted Miranda, casually mingling among the guests with a confident smile. Lila narrowed her eyes, a surge of determination coursing through her. She wouldn't let Miranda's presence ruin this night. Instead, she focused on the task at hand, pouring her heart into every dish that left the kitchen. The reviews began pouring in almost immediately. Guests praised the flavors and the atmosphere, and Lila's heart swelled with pride. She had built this from the ground up, and it was paying off. As the night continued, Lila felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. This was her place, her home. She had proved, not only to herself but to the entire community, that she could succeed in this world. But just as she was starting to relax, the atmosphere shifted. A commotion erupted near the entrance as a group of influencers entered, their cameras flashing. Lila's stomach dropped as she realized they were there for Miranda, who was now making her way toward the kitchen with a smug expression. Lila steeled herself, refusing to let Miranda's presence intimidate her. "Keep cooking," she instructed her team, determination in her voice. "Let's show them what we're made of." Miranda approached, her demeanor dripping with condescension. "I didn't expect to see you here, Lila," she said, her tone laced with mockery. "How quaint." Lila met her gaze with confidence. "We're busy here, Miranda. If you're not here to support the restaurant, I suggest you leave." Miranda chuckled, unfazed. "Oh, I'm just here to observe. I wouldn't want to miss the spectacle." Lila took a deep breath, reminding herself to remain calm. "We're not a spectacle. We're a restaurant, and we're here to stay." The tension in the air was palpable, but Lila refused to back down. She turned her attention back to her team, focusing on the orders coming in. As the night wore on, the restaurant buzzed with energy, and Lila felt the thrill of success coursing through her veins. Richard came into the kitchen, a proud smile on his face. "You're doing amazing, Lila. The feedback is incredible." "Thanks, Richard," she replied, her heart swelling with pride. "I couldn't have done it without you." The evening culminated in an unexpected moment of triumph when a local food critic approached Lila at the counter. "I just wanted to say how impressed I am with your food. You've created something truly special here." Lila beamed, her heart racing with joy. "Thank you. That means the world to me." As the night drew to a close, Lila stepped outside to catch her breath. The lines of customers waiting to enter wrapped around the block, and she felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. They had done it. They had opened a restaurant that resonated with the community. Richard joined her outside, leaning against the wall with a content smile. "Look at this place, Lila. You've created magic." She laughed, feeling the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. "I couldn't have done it without you believing in me." Richard turned serious for a moment, his gaze focused on her. "And I truly believe in what we've built together. This is just the beginning." Lila nodded, looking around at the bustling crowd. She realized that this restaurant was not just a business. It was a dream realized, filled with love, passion, and the promise of new beginnings. As they stood together, she felt a sense of hope and excitement for the future. Whatever it held, they would face it together.